All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. This is Hossein Mokhtarzadeh, and this is Melbourne. I'm with Arash Arabi, who is Agile coach and trainer, and today he's going to talk a lot about Agile and what Agile is, and all about this kind of mindset, or what do we call like a framework. So Arash is helping organizations move from opinion-based decision making to evidence-based decision making. But Arash, what is Agile?
Good question. Very good question. First, let me say hi to everyone.
Hello.
Um, and I'm very pleased to have this opportunity to talk to you about what is Agile.
It's a pleasure.
Well, it's a very interesting question. What is Agile? Different people think of Agile as different things. Some people think it's a methodology. Some people think it's a software development framework or a project management tool, or some people say it's a mindset, some people say it's a way of thinking, and some people say it's a philosophy. Well, I guess by end of today, you will know actually what Agile is. Let me give you a little bit history about Agile, and then we will discuss more in detail. In I think 1999 or around those dates, around 2000, year 2000, a few different people around the world they decided that the current way that software is being developed is not very good and it can be improved a lot. So they got together, and actually no, they were each coming up with innovative ideas in their own area, in their own cities, and in their own companies. So one of them actually found, yes, there are a lot of people who are having similar approaches to software development. It's actually a new way of working. So they got them all together, and in a ski lodge in Utah, I think, and they worked together. They skied, had fun, had a lot of drinks, maybe did a little bit of work as well,
Okay.
and came out with something called Agile Manifesto,
Right.
which summarizes the gist of all the different methods that these people were using.
So you mean skiing is key? You have to first learn how to ski.
Exactly. Like without skiing, there's no way you
There's
can do
no way
agile.
you can do that.
Like, yeah, you think of skiers, they're very agile people. They
Oh,
move really
right,
quickly.
right, right. That's interesting, actually. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I didn't notice that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that made.
So later I'll tell you what's actually in the Agile Manifesto. But let's actually take a step back, and I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
Let's say you want to build a house. Oh no, let's say you want to build a bridge.
Right.
You're building infrastructure. I'm the government, I'm giving you $2 billion, and I ask you to build a bridge connecting, this side of the river to the other side of the river. What would you do? What are the steps you would take?
I I would panic first. I don't know. I would just start planning probably. Say, oh, what the budget would look like. How
Good.
much do I need to do that? What kind of people I want to
Yeah.
hire to do that. There's engineering part. There's
Will you first ask more details about the requirements? What kind of bridge it is?
all right. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. First, I probably need to know what really needs to be done. What type of
absolutely.
bridge, or yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
And then you would start, planning and
Yeah,
designing,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
exactly.
So then what would you do after you got it
So
designed?
just after we got the design done and we know what we want to do, we probably start hiring people to do it, like
Yes.
implement it, let's
Yes.
say.
So then you plan, you work out what skills you need, right?
Exactly, the skill sets, and like we need, as I said, you probably need labor, you probably need like engineering
Yeah.
part, you need
Yeah.
accountant, all sort of different
Mm.
skill people from different
Yeah.
skill set, and then start working, I
And then you're
guess.
gonna tell me when the bridge is gonna be ready, right?
Yep,
Because based on your plan, you can
you can
estimate
sort of
or
tell.
sort of tell where it's. Yeah. Okay. Then once you build it, what would you do after it's been built,
So it is built.
or as it's being built? How would you ensure quality?
Oh, at every stage, you mean, or?
Yeah, at every stage and at the end as well. How would you make sure that cars when they go on the bridge, the weights, they don't break the
Right,
bridge
right,
or
right.
something.
So these are happening in the engineering part, so the
Yeah.
design part.
Yes.
So we do the design in
Mm.
advance, and we have the requirement, as you said. We know
Mm.
probably how many cars will pass and
And
how
would
many.
you and would you test as you're building? Would you test your concretes and all those steps?
Right,
Would
right.
you perform testing as you're moving along?
Um, Not exactly. I would test them in the like a
In the lab,
laboratory, in the
okay.
lab, and then
But
probably.
once you test it in the lab, you know absolutely it's going to
Yeah,
be
I
the
know
same
that
thing.
everything
Yes.
is right, and then I'll bring them into the
Mm.
site. Probably, when I say I'm in the team,
The team, yes,
and then start assembling them.
absolutely. And once it's done, paint it,
It's
and
painted, and then get my money and go
get
to
your money.
Hawaii.
Exactly.
Probably.
Cool. Now, let me throw a bit of a spanner in your work now.
Right.
Let's say you started building your bridge, and then I decide, how I said this bridge needs to have one lanes going and one lane coming back. Now I realize that we actually need three ways going and three ways coming back. We estimated wrong the number of cars that's going to come through. What is your response?
I would be again panicking because everything is been designed based on what you first said, and then when you make changes, everything will need to be changed.
Okay.
So it probably takes a long time, like maybe another few months to sort of come back with a
And
new
a
design,
few
and
more $1 billion as well.
probably,
Okay.
yeah, and
Okay.
then a lot of fighting.
Yes.
That's no, you said this first,
Yes.
but
How about, suddenly when you're in the middle of building your concrete bridge, you realize there is no more sand. No supplier in the world is selling you sand anymore. What
oh,
would you do?
I have no idea. You probably change it to something else.
Yeah.
Probably you'll find another type of material to,
Mm.
if it is possible. But the thing is, we designed it
Mm.
based on that, or
Yes.
concrete, for instance. But
So
now,
again, tear it off all
again, we
up
will
and
exactly,
start from.
exactly.
Okay. So traditionally,
Mhm.
in software development, we used to follow exactly the same steps as you mentioned. And that came from engineering, because software
Right.
engineering was kind of an engineering based
That's right.
practice. So people would come and set out the requirements of what kind of software needs to be built. Then uh, software engineers, architects, software architects would design the product. Then the developers would go and code it, and then some testers would go and test it. I think testing is a bit different in this case because in engineering case you don't really need to test it because it's proven already, because of so many years of experimentation.
There's a
But
standards
there's
basically.
standards. But with software testing, until you actually test it at the end,
That's
you
right.
wouldn't be able to verify
That's right.
that's what they
Meant.
required. Yeah, the requirement matches what you're shipping. But the difference, the big difference in software and hardware, not engineering construction, is that changing requirements.
Right.
So there is a change it's a very fast moving world.
Right. Right.
And actually, requirements aren't clear. People don't really know what they want. And as time goes by, they realize that what they really wanted is not what they said, already in the requirements.
Would that, sorry to interrupt you, would that be a challenge, because when I come to you as a software developer, for instance, and I have an idea, I want that to be done. And tomorrow, if I come up with another idea, isn't it another project?
Absolutely, and
Right.
that is exactly the same case like you
Right.
said, because we've already designed it and started building
Building
it,
it.
and exactly the same analogy as the bridge. Same thing would happen. And that is the pain, one of the pains which drove the development of Agile way of working. Right? Similarly, the business is evolving so quickly that everything is changing and everything is unclear, so people realize they needed something else. Similarly, the technology, underlying technology is changing.
Changing, exactly.
The programming language that you've been using yesterday is out tomorrow. No more sand available or no more
That's
iron
right,
available.
right.
That's an analogy for it.
That's right.
Skills change, technology change, markets change, people's ideas change. It's an innovative, fast-paced environment.
So you mean that there's of course, there's a very dynamic situation. In that dynamic
Absolutely.
situation, you are saying that the traditional methodologies didn't work.
Did not work.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And traditionally, this is called waterfall because you had like your requirements, then your design, then your development, then your testing, and
That's
would,
right.
like a waterfall flow down, which is kind of the opposite way of Agile way of working. So let me ask you, how
Sure.
would you address a situation like this? How would you work in an environment where everything is changing?
Maybe I'll stop working and go do farming or something easy. I don't know exactly. Maybe I would. I don't know. Maybe I'll try to tell them, like my customers, that whenever you want to make changes, so be upfront, so be very, like
But they don't know
they don't know.
because the market is so dynamic.
That's right.
Everything changes every day. Technology is changing.
That's right. That's right. Can be
The hardware you designed for it last year doesn't
doesn't
even
work.
exist in the market.
That's right. But then I don't know how we can actually come up with something um, that both work for both. Like it would be a win-win situation because you don't want to have like lose-win situation.
Okay, how about if you don't have requirements, what's gonna happen? If
Oh,
you if
okay.
your customer comes to you and say, I want this with these details, you say no, we don't commit to requirements on that level of details. We don't design things into that level of details. You know what your vision is, you know what kind of product you want. Let us build something and see if that's what you really like.
Right. Let's do it together, basically.
Let's do it together.
Okay. Okay.
You be involved every day and we iterate. You have small baby steps. You have something which, overall is in the same direction that you want to go. Maybe it's not exactly what you want,
Okay.
but we can refine it
Right.
as we go on,
Right.
and we can change it as we go on.
Is it
How's
like
that?
that sounds really good because you remind me of I cheated actually. I read a little bit some of the things that before with the interview we talked about. So in terms of like minimum viable product and these kind of so you have like
Absolutely.
you have simple things that sort of works
Mhm.
but not necessarily the
Absolutely.
final product. But then you
Absolutely.
come back and start discussing it with your clients, right?
Absolutely. Let me give you an example. Minimum viable product,
Right.
or also called MVP. So it's again, there are a lot of concepts in the industry that are quite tightly interrelated. MVP comes from a concept called lean startup.
That's right.
It's different to Agile, but they're quite interrelated and used together almost all the time. So with lean startups, what happens is, I'll give you an example.
Right.
It's better to have an example rather than explain. Zappos, the online shoe store,
That's right.
right? Someone had a brilliant idea. Let's sell shoes online, right? I wouldn't ever build a website to sell shoes online because I would say, who would buy shoes online?
Right, that's
That's
right.
crazy,
Yeah,
you
that's
know.
right. You have to test.
You
You have to
wanna
just
try
try
on the
it.
shoes. see if
Exactly.
they're
You want to
nice or
really
not.
try these things. Yeah.
Yeah. So they said, all right, we have this idea. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Let's figure out. Let's
Oh.
design an experiment
Right.
to see if it works.
Or not.
Then what
Yeah.
was that experiment? They went to their local shoe store, took photos of the shoes on their shelf, create a very, very simple website with a front end only, no back end, no complex shopping and supply chain and logistics behind it.
That's basically MVP.
That's the MVP.
Right.
They put the shoes on their website and they talked to the shop owner. If anyone buys it from our website, we're gonna come and buy it off you and ship it to them. We're gonna lose a bit of money, but that's
Sure.
fine. We're testing hypothesis.
That's
here.
right, right.
And then yeah, people started buying,
Oh, really?
and then they kind of understood that is market is working, and
You remind me, Arash, remind me of basically scientific approach.
absolutely.
So that's basically what in science things are being done is they have an idea
Mm-hmm.
or hypothesis or a question in mind. Say, okay, let's do this and see if it is doable or not doable,
Mm-hmm.
or the answer is yes or no. And then they start building and doing the experiment and stuff, and then come back. There's a result, and then they make a conclusion. They say, oh, this one did work or this one didn't work, and then start building up on that. But well, here is my challenge because I see even in scientists, among scientists, not just business people, because agile and all these kinds of things works very well, or people in business side, they have been using it quite a lot. Like big companies like Google, like Facebook, I think
Absolutely.
they are using it. But what are the challenges that people who know scientific approaches, or who people who may know some of these methodologies, but they can't use it in their daily life?
Yeah,
Why is that?
absolutely. Oh, it's completely different things.
Different thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
because
Okay.
my personal behavior is diff. So there are schools of there are frameworks
Right.
and best practices and established ways of working in every industry,
That's right.
right? And even in the university, even scientists, they have their own
Way
scientific
of doing.
method.
Yep.
Basically,
Yep.
is been thousands of years old,
Exactly.
and it's all established. Everyone knows this is the way we should work. But when it comes to personal life, it's different
Oh,
because
that's
it's
right. That's
how
right.
much wisdom you personally have, that whether you can apply those interesting concepts in your way of working. Like I think we were talking about a concept the other day, that how come people in meetings they
Yep. Yep.
constantly argue and
Yep.
debate,
Yep.
and they can't come
Exactly.
into conclusion.
Yes.
Yes, there is an element of ego and a lot of those things involved, but at the end of the day, everyone is an expert, especially in scientific or business
Environments. Yeah.
context. Yeah, people have been doing things for 30 years.
Yep.
They are
That's
an
right.
expert in it, and they think they are an expert, and
Yep.
absolutely that's correct. They are an expert, but the problem is that the context that we're talking about are so complex, and so many times not even complex, they're chaotic,
Right.
that my experience and expertise doesn't help in a broader context.
So that's interesting. So what is the point of agile then?
Then Agile says, let's experiment.
Oh, okay. So
Let's not waste time debating.
oh,
Okay, you think that what you're saying is right. I think what I'm saying is right. Instead of trying to convince each other, let's design an experiment and see which one of us is right.
but
Maybe none of us is right,
that's
right?
right. That's
Or maybe
right.
both of us are in a way right.
Yeah, yeah. To some extent, right. But how can you convince like in a let's give it let's imagine we will come back to I think your definition is still you are still defining the agile itself, but in terms of like in let's say in a meeting and there's a power dynamic
Oh,
as well,
yeah.
and someone says, as you said, like this is my I think this should be done, and someone says no, this should be done, and then there would be a lot of argument, and of course the person who is lower in the ranking would accept.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe
Okay,
not.
or maybe.
Okay, then we're talking about a few other things like
Right.
leadership skills
I see.
and facilitation skills,
course.
and that's actually that is a skill that if someone has, even though if the CEO is in the office and someone has good facilitations or leadership skills, even if they are a developer, they may be able to control
I see.
and manage the situation.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I think we probably need another session for
Absolutely, yes.
just these kind of like
Absolutely.
stuff. But coming back to agile, it seems you're right. We do experiments, and then what? So
Okay. So basically, yes, uh, lean is like we discussed. You come up with your experiments, and they have a terminology called pivot. So once you build your MVP based on the feedback that you get, you pivot. Either keep in the same direction, but most probably you're going to move or come up with new experiments
That's
to
right.
improve. And that is one of the fundamental spirits of Agile, that experimentation and empirical process, basically, scientific approach and
That's right.
empirical process.
That's right.
Now, going back to Agile itself, the Agile Manifesto, which we discussed first. So these people, they were working in various different companies, and they came up with their own way of working. And once they came together, they wanted to come up with a very, very, very simple manifesto, which summarizes all their approaches. And what they came up with were 4 values and 12 principles. And that's called Agile Manifesto. So, Agile Manifesto, the values of Agile Manifestos are individuals and interactions over processes and tools. And I'll explain them one by one. Let's go one by one. Individuals and interactions over processes and tools. It means that traditionally, in say for example that bridge building example, you had standards, right? You had processes established, you had your tools established. In software development, the importance of individuals and interactions is more than your processes and tools. You absolutely need processes and tools. You cannot do software development without processes and tools. But what you have to understand is your individuals and interaction comes first. If there is a disagreement, and if people think that process is not going to work, they have to constantly, every day talk about these things and try to improve their processes. Next one is customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Yeah, you need contract.
That's right.
But without customer collaboration, you're back in square one.
Exactly.
You set things, fix them up. You don't collaborate, it's gonna fail because everything is changing so fast.
So is it like if the customer doesn't want to collaborate, so then that's gone? Like you can't really continue.
You absolutely, and if you can convince them.
Right. It is
Correct.
like a
But if
challenge
there is
here.
no collaboration, that is one of the 4 Agile values.
And then that's gone basically.
Yeah, and the super important thing to bear in mind is in Agile, we got in values we got this over this. Like for example, customer collaboration over contract negotiation.
That's right.
You're not saying don't have contracts. Without contracts, you cannot have software development. But you need collaboration more than the contract.
Exactly.
If you realize what you had in contract is wrong, go back and change it. Don't
Either
say it's in the contract.
either way, like you as a developer and the customer. So either way, understanding.
Both ways.
Okay.
Absolutely. Then the next one is individual responding to change over following a plan.
Right.
So the question I always ask in my classes is, do we do more planning in Agile or less planning?
That is interesting.
And the answer is always we do more planning.
More planning. Okay.
More planning.
Right.
Because we're constantly planning.
Oh, exactly.
Because we plan something and then things change, and then replan, and then things change again. And some people say, "Oh, we're Agile. We don't do planning. We don't want to be in those meetings when we do planning." But that's the misconception that the left override. You don't do that. No, you do planning, but response is going to change. It's
changing.
more important. And the last one is customer collaboration over contract negotiation, responding to change over following a plan, individuals and interactions over processes and tools, and what is the last one? There is another value.
Whenever you remember, we can talk about this. Okay. So there's actually these are amazing manifesto you mentioned, right? In terms of I think we really don't have much time. We really need to have like hours of discussion on this. We'll definitely continue with that. But overall, what I understand is the process is very much collaborative and bilateral. Basically, you have to really understand the requirements and not the overall. Like you can't really come to me say, "Oh, I want to build this," and that's it. and I don't want to, and then I'll start building it, and then I don't know, a year later you come say, oh no, this wasn't what I wanted. And I've seen it actually. Like probably everyone who is listening and watching this program is basically have had this in any context, from home based stuff like you're asking your wife or your wife asking you something to buy, and then you come home. We always have these problems. So no, this wasn't what I wanted. Not that type of bread.
You know what my response to that is?
What was that?
Not to, not in a home family
No,
situation, but
no, don't make it more complex.
no.
Complicated.
So again, I ask people in waterfall approach.
Right.
What do you think is the biggest problem of waterfall approach? What do you think?
It's not. You can't really come back and fix things. I guess one thing maybe.
And remember, testing is done at last, right?
Right.
So you are
If you
not
made a
going
mistake.
to know your mistakes up until it's too late.
Exactly. So this is actually an amazing thing. I think you actually remember the
Yes.
other one you want to talk about, but don't forget it.
No.
But I think there's a misunderstanding in what I have seen in my little experience in working in different environments. I realized that people are avoiding mistakes, which is
Oh,
basically in
excellent.
Agile is just promoting. Say, oh, make mistake, but fast,
Absolutely,
right? Okay,
absolutely.
cool.
So in Agile, we say, some people say we need to fail fast, but I don't say, we don't want to say we want to fail fast, we want to learn fast.
Right.
But learning
right.
involves failing as
Of
well.
course, learning is part of it.
And mistakes aren't frowned upon. Mistakes are the best way of learning.
Perfect.
So the last value of
Sure.
Agile Manifesto is uh, uh, working product over a comprehensive documentation.
Awesome.
So you would need documentation, absolutely, but if you don't have a product, there is no point spending millions of dollars building specification and other documentation. So let's focus on the product and write
And-
documentation supporting the product.
Right. That is amazing. Maybe because it's about half an hour we're talking, it's just
Ooh,
so
already?
quick.
Wow.
Yeah, I
Wow.
think so. I think it's like 20, at least 7 something.
Okay.
So I think maybe we can actually end here at this point, if you don't mind. I would love to
Absolutely.
actually
But
keep
I
going.
want
Yep.
before we finish, I want to ask you a question.
Oh my God.
Now we talked about Agile for a while.
Yeah.
What do you think Agile is?
That's a good question. A
Is it
hard
a
one.
methodology? Is it a software development practice?
Well,
is it
what-
a philosophy?
Yeah, I understand. What I understand is basically a way of thinking, a way of basically doing things more efficiently, as far as I understand, and don't just plan and keep going, and then after a while you realize, oh, you made a mistake, or you made it, because it would be if you don't do it with trial and error, but very short period trial and error, then you might be really in trouble after quite some time, and you don't really talk to your customers or stakeholders. This is something I don't know if I'm right.
Absolutely
Oh,
right.
awesome.
Absolutely. Agile is a mindset. It's a way of thinking, and it's
Perfect.
a philosophy.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much, Arash. It was a pleasure talking to you about agile software development, and we'll make sure to continue this discussion. And I hope everyone who is listening and watching to this program will enjoy, at least to learn to some extent what agile is and how to implement it. Eventually, we will talk more and more about it. Anything that you want to say, the last word?
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Hussein, and
Pleasure.
really enjoy.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Bye, everyone.